Chapter 21, Learning and Training at Work. In this chapter, we will go through about the learning and training. For example, we start to discuss about the types or different types of learning, and then we talk about the learning process, the theories behind, as well as we will explain about the theories and how we adopt the theories in practice. And then we'll discuss about training. Two questions here. First, what are training, development, and education? Another question is, what is the process about training and development? So in this class, we'll focus on learning and the learning process. And let's start to discuss about learning. Learning can be defined as the process of acquiring knowledge through experience, which leads to changes in behavior. So here, it includes acquiring new skills, knowledge, or attitudes, or a combination of all three. We have different types of learnings, but before that, we have to understand well about what is learning. And here we explain about learning is a process of acquiring knowledge through experience. And what are the outcomes of learning is to change behavior of an individual. So here we discuss about types of learning. We have three types of learning. First, a formal or formal learning. This is undertaken deliberately and occurs when individuals learn and study. It is often classroom-based and highly structured. So first type of learning is formal learning, which a person can acquire the knowledge to change his or her behavior. It's very direct, like classroom-based education or classroom-based learning. And second is informal learning. This is also usually deliberate. That is, the people or the person is the person intends to do it, but it's not highly structured. Examples include self-direct learning, networking, coaching, and mentoring. So sometimes for informal learning, the opportunity to have this informal learning is very wide, like you can have a drinks in a networking activity. That is, you learn from others, like the others are sharing their experiences about their job, their work. And it is for you an informal occasion to learn from other experiences that can lead to change your behavior as well. Remember our definition of learning. So informal learning is also one type of learning that we would like to discuss or for you to remember. The third type of learning is incidental. This is a byproduct of another activity. That means your intention of joining the activity is not to learn, but it is a byproduct of such activity. For example, attending a formal classroom course may also help a student to learn how to keep their attention focused for a long period. Another example, networking example, like we just discussed about networking, to have a drinks, you network with other people. It helps you to improve your communication skills, but it is the byproduct of the activity. It's not the main focus of your networking activities to build your communication skills. It is an incidental learning opportunity for you. And the pace of learning changes with familiarity and effects known as the learning curve. So here we will explain about the learning curve. And the shape of this curve depends on the type of work or task and the individual. So here the example is about the learning curve from a study guide. And on the left hand side you can see average number of pages per day. And the bottom you can see the number of weeks studying. At initial 2 or 3 weeks, your number of pages read per day is about less than 10, say for example here. But up to this point, maybe more than 3 days, the learning curve sees an increasing pace of reading per day. And at the end of 10 weeks, here, the 10 weeks, the number of pages read per day is more than 30. So what do we learn from this chart? That means the rate of learning here. If we have more experience on reading, the experience has shown that learning does not take place at a steady rate. So initially, the first 3 weeks is about 10 pages per day. So initially, the progress will be slow. And with sudden improvements, followed by further progress for a period of time. So here, you can see the progress with improved in the reading per day, but there will be a final leveling off after 10 weeks without any other effort, or even you put a lot of effort. The changes or the progress will be more or less the same. So here is the learning curve. It is initially a flat, slow, and then suddenly improved with faster learning, and by the end of the period, say or final stage, there's leveling off at a steady rate. So next, what are the importance of learning in workplace? And for some employees, often for smaller businesses, see investments in their time on learning is just a drain on their resources. That means using up their valuable time and money to do it. But we see the work-based learning has a number of key advantages that we will explain to you. And the first advantage is it can lead to increased competence, understanding, self-esteem, and morale. All these leading to improved productivity. So first advantage of learning or work-based learning here is improved productivity through increased competence, understanding, self-esteem, and morale. So next, apart from productivity, the work-based learning can also improve the level of creativity and innovation of workers in the organization, giving an advantage over competitors. What here we observe from a lot of studies showing the work-based learning can improve the innovation of workers. And the third advantage is people who enjoy learning are more likely to be flexible in times of constant change. In other words, the people, they are willing to learn. That means they are more skilled or they are more skillful in times of constant change. So they can adapt to new tasks or jobs more flexible or easier for them to adopt this change. And the fourth advantage is if workers are not given learning opportunities, there is a risk that they will feel undervalued and will lose motivation. So learning can help to improve the staff morale as well as their motivation in their job. Before we talk about learning organization, we need to conclude that the importance of learning in the workplace is not only for big organizations, but also for many small businesses as well. So you must, as an entrepreneur, the entrepreneur must develop its people first and will develop the organization. And now move on to next topic about the learning organization. So what is learning organization? The learning organization describes any organization that facilitates the learning of all members and continuously transforms itself. So what does it mean? So typically, the learning organizations generate and transfer knowledge throughout the organization. This is the first characteristic of learning organization, that they are generating and transferring knowledge throughout the organization. And next, the learning organization means that they learn from others and from past experience. So if you explain an organization is a learning organization, that means it learns from others and from their past experience. Why? Why is important? Because it can help them from the learning to grow and to build further. And the learning organization also tolerate risk and failure as learning opportunities. So they don't like risk as well, but they tolerate the risk and they accept the failure as learning opportunities for them to improve further. And learning organization also have a systematic, ongoing, collective, and scientific approach to problem solving. So this may give them a significant advantage over competitors for this learning organization, especially in fast-changing markets. So let's move on to talk about the learning process. It's about the theories that we would like to share with you. Two theories that help to understand about how people learn new things. So yes, here we need to answer questions about learning process. How people learn new things. We based on two theorists. First, Cope. The other one is Honey and Mumford. So let's discuss about Cope. The Cope experimental learning cycle. So what did this gentleman suggest? Cope suggests that learning is a series of steps based on everyday experience. And he argued that classroom learning is false. So in other words, he didn't agree about classroom learning, and that actual learning comes from actually undertaking tasks and learning from them. From Cope, the experimental learning cycle identified 4 learning stages. So we need to address for you. The concrete experience here, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. So there are 4 stages identified by Cope here. According to Cope, successful learning is a cycle that progresses through all 4 stages. For example, if you learn how to use a computer system, the first, maybe you have a concrete experience, you may decide to start using the new computer system without any training or guidance. For example, you have experience before. Or reflective observation. That means you have failed to accomplish everything you want. You spend some time identifying the problems you had and which tasks you were unable to perform successfully on the new system. Or another stage is abstract conceptualization. That means you have identified the problem areas, you go to the instruction manual and look up how to undertake this task. Or another stage, the active experimentation. If you face a similar problem, that means how to use a new computer system. Once you have read the instructions relating to the areas you were uncertain about. You then go back to the computer system and try them again to see if you are now able to perform all the tasks you need to accomplish. But Cope suggests that it doesn't matter where you start on the cycle. You could start at the abstract conceptualization stage and begin by reading the instruction manual before using the system. Or you could start from, say, watch someone else using the system first, beginning at the reflective observation stage. So it doesn't matter where you start on the cycle, but Cope suggests that the learning stages include these. The learning cycle includes 4 stages, as we mentioned. And Cope also identifies 4 different learning styles adopted by individual learners based on where they start on the learning cycle, and each style is a combination of 2 elements from the cycle. So let's see. Divergent. The first is about divergent, and we call our chart here divergent is on the top right here. Divergent is the between feeling and watching. So between feeling and watching is divergent. So for divergent feeling and watching, these people prefer to watch rather than do, reflecting on what they are seeing from various angles before trying it themselves. So the learning style here for those divergent people, or the divergent type of people, they prefer watch rather than do. So it's about feeling and watching. And the second type of learning style is assimilative. They are between the watching and thinking. These individuals take a concise, logical approach. They prefer good, clear explanations rather than undertaking practical examples. They then need time to think through what they have seen. So they are observers, they're watching, and then they think about what they watched, and what they need is they prefer good and clear explanation during the learning. They don't like practical examples here. And the third type of learning styles is convergent. It's between the thinking and doing. These type of people prefer to apply ideas and enjoy testing ideas out in practice to see if they really work. So they think and then they do. The last type of learning styles here mentioned by Cope is accommodative. They're not just doer, they're feeling as well. They're doing and feeling. These people are strong preference for concrete experiences and active experimentation. So they prefer the hands-on approach. So there are 4 types of learning styles can be adopted by individual learners, as explained by Cope. So by Cope, he starts talking about the experimental learning cycle, like concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. And what are the learning styles for different type of persons? He grouped under 4 main styles, as mentioned: divergent, assimilative, convergent, and accommodative. And based on Cope works, now move on to Honey and Mumford, the learning style theory proposed by them. These 2 gentlemen built on Cope's earlier work and came up with 4 alternative classifications of learning styles. And they argued people learn more effectively if they are aware of their learning style preferences. So remember what we discussed in Cope's experimental learning cycle here, and for Honey and Mumford, they add some more elements or explanation here like reflector, like activist, and theorist, and also pragmatist. So let's move on to discuss about what Honey and Mumford explained. They categorized the learners or the learning style preferences into 4 types. First, activists. For activists, they involve themselves fully without bias to new experiences. They are open-minded, enthusiastic, constantly searching for new challenges. So they would like to explore, but they are bored with implementation and long-term consolidation. So they are just short-term passion. And they enjoy learning through games, competitive teamwork tasks, and role plays. So, or what we call the activist dynamic learners. And next, reflectors. Another name of reflector is imaginative learner. So for reflectors, they prefer to step back, to ponder and observe others before taking action. They are in general cautious, may be perceived as indecisive, and tend to adopt a low profile. They prefer learning activities that are observational. So they prefer watch, because if you remember what Cope's learning cycle here for reflectors is under the category on divergent. That means they are feeling and watching. So they prefer watch, they prefer adopt a low profile, the learning activities they prefer is observational. And the third type of learning style mentioned by Honey and Mumford is theorist. They adapt and integrate information in a step-by-step logical way, and they prefer certainty and feel uncomfortable with subjective judgments, literal thinking, and anything flippant. They prefer exploring interrelationship between ideas and principles. So for theorists, they are talked about similar to Cope's learning cycle under the assimilative approach. And the last learning cycle mentioned here by Honey and Mumford is pragmatist. They are keen to try out ideas, theories, and techniques to see if they work in practice. They are essentially practical, and they are down-to-earth people. They like making practical decisions. They act quickly on ideas that attract them, and they tend to be impatient with open-ended discussions. And they prefer learning activities that are close to direct work experience. So we will explain a bit more about the learning styles mentioned by Honey and Mumford. So here, what are learners? If I show this picture, can you guess? It's dynamic learners or activists. They usually ask a question, what if? So their primary interest in self-discovery, they ask what if? And in terms of learning, they lead a variety of new and challenging activities where they can have a lot of their limelight, like business games, competitive tasks, role-playing exercise. And for dynamic learners, they want to touch everything. They need problem solving, they need small group discussions or games, they need peer feedback, and they can self-direct work assignments or help this learner. And next is asking why by imaginative learners. Their primary interest in personal meaning, and they would like to ask the question why. If you have imaginative learners, how can you help them? Or how can you instruct them? For example, like teachers need to motivate and provide expert interpretation to those imaginative learners because they need the answer to respond to their question why. And their preferred method of teaching is simulation or discussion. They need time to think over, assimilate, or prepare for activities, or review what has happened and reach decisions without pressures and tight deadlines. And if the lectures can help them to learn, and they look for an instructor who is both a taskmaster or a guide, because they need an answer to respond to their question for why. And for this picture, I think you can guess the next type of learning style I would like to share with you is theorists or analytic learners. And they are primarily interested in facts as they need to conceptual understanding. They question what. And if you are instructors or teachers, you need to give them the facts that deepen understanding. These learners need opportunities to question, probe, and explore mathematically the assumptions and logic and the interrelationships between ideas and events. You can use case studies, theoretical readings, and reflective thinking exercise to help analytic learners. And the last learning style that I share with you is how, or common sense learners or pragmatists. They ask question how. They are interested about how the things work. To instruct this type of learners, you need to act as a coach. Students need to practice techniques with coaching feedback from a critical expert, and they must see a link between the subject matter and a problem or opportunity on the job. Group work or peer feedback often leads to success for those common sense learners. So what are the implications of the learning models that we discussed? For most individuals, they exhibit a clear preference for one style of learning and may struggle to switch between them. And people with such a clear style of preference will therefore tend to learn more effectively if learning is geared to their personal preferences. So let's see different type of people, they would like to have different type of learning style. And with reference to Cope's theory, for example, like people who prefer the assimilating learning style will not be comfortable being thrown in at the deep end without notes and instructions because they need facts, they need theory to support them to learn. So you have to give them notes and instructions for them to learn in the learning environments they are comfortable under these environments. If without notes and instructions, they have no directions to how to learn or how to do it. And for people who prefer to use an accommodating learning style, they are likely to become frustrated if they are forced to read lots of instructions and rules and are unable to get hands-on experience as soon as possible. So for this type of learners, if you applied the theorist learning style on them, they will be uncomfortable because they are frustrated about reading a lot of papers, words, instructions, and rules. What they need is hands-on experience. And under Honey and Mumford's model, it provides suggestions about the best way for individuals to learn. And the most effective learning methods are different for each learning style. We just mentioned different learning styles, so let's see. So now let's move on to explain the learning process indicated by the theory. First, activists. Okay, it means that some of the students or some of the people, they prefer to have a practical approach to training, which are flexible and optimistic. Okay, they prefer practical problems. They would like to solve the problems. They enjoy the participation and challenges.
they find they will be easily bored under, for example, like classroom teaching. They don't like theory. They must have the hands-on training. So what we call them is the activist. On the opposite is theorist. That means some people prefer to have the learning is under a structured or programmed environment. For example, like in the classroom training with a very clear step-by-step approach, so they can learn from those theories under the structured program. And it is designed to allow time for the analysis and provided by people who can share the same preference for ideas analysis. That means theories are opposite of the activists. They prefer structured program training instead of hands-on approach. And we have another type of learning process or style, which is a reflectors. Those people prefer an observational approach to training. They need to work at their own pace, maybe slow, cautious, not very participative. They don't prefer to work with others or to learn with others. They need to think, they need to do and reflect. So what we call them the reflectors. They do not find learning easy, especially if under rushed. For example, under stress or in a very time limited environment, they don't prefer it. They do not find it easy to learn. Last but not the least, pragmatists. Okay, pragmatists, they need to see direct value and link between training and real problems and aim to do things better. That means they learn theories. Okay, fine. They are happy to learn theories, but they need to know how to apply those theories in practice. So they enjoy learning new techniques and tasks and are good at finding improved ways of doing things. So they, for example, they are not theorists, but they are happy to learn some new things, new theories, and how to apply them in the day-to-day work or task. So that's for 4 types of learning models that you are suggested to understand well, and you should know whether like activists and theorists, they are opposite with each other. They are not in the same type.